Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. Dena Grayson, and thanks for joining me to talk about the coronavirus outbreak. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a medical doctor and I also have a PhD in biochemistry. So I'm a bit of a nerd. So hopefully you can hang out with my nerdiness a little bit tonight. So look, let's talk what's going on with the coronavirus outbreak, where things are likely going next, and of course, what you need to do to protect yourself as well as your loved ones. So, first of all, everyone, let's just take a deep, collective, deep breath. Okay. This is, again, not the zombie apocalypse. It's not the end of the world. It's bad. And unfortunately, it's going to get worse. But, for the most part here, like everything's going to be okay. There are some folks that are at higher risk. We'll talk about that. But people should not panic, but, prepare and be ready for what's next. So let's dive in a little bit. Now, today, we, of course, have had some unfortunate announcements. Now, no surprise, we're seeing more and more cases. We now have cases of coronavirus, and the disease itself is called COVID 19. So, we're seeing cases of coronavirus now around the country, in Washington State, Oregon, California. I think Rhode Island joined the coronavirus party. Not that it's a good party. I think this is like one of those parties you'd rather not get an invitation. Illinois as well. So, look, there right now are dozens of cases that have been confirmed, but the reality is there are many, 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 many more cases. So, let's think about the timing, right? So, you have to look at the timing of when that first case was diagnosed. And if you live in or near one of these communities, you'll want to pay close attention here because there's kind of some good news and bad news. The reality here is that if you live in a community where there's been a coronavirus case, you need to subtract 2 to 3 weeks from the day that that first case became known. And the reason for that is, first of all, we know coronavirus has a pretty long incubation period of around 14 days. And secondly, it takes time for people to get really, really sick and go see the doctor. Because most people, if they have just a little mild cold, they don't go to the doctor. We tend to wait until we get pretty sick. So that means if you live in one of these communities, the coronavirus has already been circulating. And put it in the context of like a super bad flu. Now, this is different from flu, no vaccines or treatments, and it does appear to be more deadly than seasonal flu. But people don't freak out when there's seasonal flu, which happens every year. So you want to treat it like a really, 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 really bad flu year. So taking precautions. And again, towards the end of this video, we will talk about those specific precautions that you can take. So we already know that this virus is circulating. So what does that mean? Well, the Trump administration finally got, well, I'm not going to say they got their act together because, I mean, let's be honest, okay? But they at least have started to mobilize testing. Thank God, it's about doggone time, right? 75,000 tests are going to be immediately mobilized to very likely the places where there's an outbreak right now. So, what we should expect is virus we know has been circulating in these communities for at least 3 weeks, if not longer. And in fact, some excellent research from scientists in Washington state suggests that actually it looks like, at least in that area, the virus has been circulating for up to 6 weeks. So we need to expect and prepare. And I just don't want people to panic when it happens because it's very, very, very likely going to happen. We're going to see a bunch of new cases over the coming weeks here uh, throughout March. So don't be surprised. And don't be surprised if we see more and more areas joining the party no one wants to go to, right? The coronavirus party. I'm here in Florida right now. We don't have a case, but the reality is that this is going to go to every single state very likely and very, very soon. So we should expect a lot more cases over the coming weeks. Now, typically what coronavirus tends to do, and just like influenza, even the really bad 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, what happened there was that that Spanish flu came in around March of 1918, but then it sort of had a small first wave. And coronaviruses, like flu viruses, tend to be seasonal, peak in winter, ebb in summer, and then back up come the fall. So the southern hemisphere is very likely looking at, unfortunately, as our cases die down, their cases likely will ramp up. Sub-Saharan Africa, South America. But what that means is right now we've got a pretty rocky 4 to 6 weeks still coming. So I would just again I want folks to be prepared for that and don't be surprised. But we're also in the middle of flu season. No one's panicking about that. And again, not this is not flu, no treatments, no vaccines, looks like a higher mortality rate. But for most folks, this virus is a little bit more dangerous than the typical seasonal flu, but not a ton, not like 20-fold like you're seeing the averages. There are specific groups and populations, though, where this infection is much more dangerous. So, folks that are older, especially those 70, 80 years old, and those that have underlying medical conditions or immunosuppression, such as and other medical conditions, I should say, like heart disease, diabetes, and chronic lung disease. So, folks like you and your loved ones, and we all have them. I do as well. Those are the ones that I'm most worried about, and I think we all should. And we can all do something here. So let's talk a bit about what you can do and I can do to help ourselves and help one another. So a lot of these are really simple, basic things, such as wash your hands. And when I say wash your hands, when you get it, come in that your front door, like you want to wash your hands the first thing. Drop your stuff, go wash your hands, and not just I'm done. Sing a song, but or somebody suggested happy birthday, but you want a good 15, 20 seconds of soap water, warm soapy water. Wash those hands, rub a dub dub in that tub. Okay. Sounds basic stuff really, really, really works here. If you can bring hand wipes with you, if you're out in the store, wipe down that grocery cart, use the hand wipes they have. Every little bit helps. If you are of someone who is older, and at higher risk because you have an underlying medical condition, then when people come to your house, have them wash their hands. Say, please, would you mind washing your hands, or have hand wipes. I mean, these simple things matter. Secondly, don't use your fingers when you're out touching stuff like elevator buttons and other things that people can touch. If at all possible, try to avoid it. Use your elbow. Don't shake hands. It is flu season. I typically try not to shake hands in flu season, especially with coronavirus circulating. There's been some videos circulating online with like these foot taps. That's pretty cool. You can bump elbows or give a wave and say, hey, like I know I'm a little, don't think I'm weird, but we got to be careful because we need to protect ourselves, but also our loved ones. The other thing is learn how to cough. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you know how to cough. Dr. Tina, don't tell me how to cough, but don't cough into your hands because then you're spraying germs on your hands. Cough ideally into a Kleenex that you throw away. If you don't have one, cough into your shoulder or aim away from people, okay? Like you wouldn't barf on them. Please don't spray your coronavirus on your friends. I don't think they like you very much. So the other thing is if at all possible, if you start to feel symptoms of coronavirus, which are uh, good news, bad news, typically mild infection, 80% of the time is like the common cold. So runny nose, sneezing, sniffling, maybe a little bit of a sore throat. So if you can, try to stay home so you aren't infecting everyone else around you. And if wash your hands a lot if you are sick as well, because then you're less likely to spread germs. If you start having signs that are more consistent with a more severe infection, those would be things like fever, a cough, shortness of breath, then you should seek medical attention. So think of this like from your own self or your loved ones. What would you do if coronavirus weren't circulating? If you had a little cold, would you run off to the emergency room? No, you wouldn't. Would you panic? No. So don't. Corona, don't freak out. So try to be calm about it. If you have a loved one who is sick, has is immunosuppressed, what would you do if they normally had a fever? Do exactly like that, right? Now, if you live in an area where coronavirus has been circulating, where it's known, and I'm not talking 100 miles away. I'm talking like you live in the town. nearby, if you've had known contact with people that have recently visited places where there's known to be infection. So near Milano in Italy, Milan, uh, China, South Korea, and Iran. So if we know people that have been there recently while this has been in the hot zone, as you call it, then yes, you should have a high index of suspicion that if you start having these kinds of symptoms, that you may be infected. So if you live in an area where it's happening in the US, or you've had contact with folks that have been to an area where it's a hot zone. So what should you do? Well, if you start having serious symptoms, you absolutely need to see a doctor or go to the emergency room, but try not to just show up. So call your doctor's office, call the hospital, ask them what to do, so that way they may say, hey, no, don't come here. We want you to go to the regional hospital 10 minutes away because that's where they're seeing patients. Now, I know that brings up insurance issues. If you only are covered at one place, you got to go. I mean, unfortunately, we don't live right now in a country where you can just show up at a hospital and get health care, which I know a lot of us want to change in the election, but right now I wanted to focus on coronavirus. So be safe, everyone. Again, wash those hands. Um, you know, uh, don't touch stuff out in public if you can possibly help it. This does not mean quarantine yourself in your house. Please don't do that. There's no reason. If you live in a community where a lot of this is circulating and you feel more comfortable keeping your kids home from school, my strong suspicion is the schools are going to tell you, hey, keep your kids home. But if it's literally in your community, you could certainly think about that, especially if kids who have underlying health issue. But the overall good news here is that kids don't tend to get sick. There have been, as far as I'm aware, no deaths reported in young children, which is good news. But kids, as we know, spread virus. So have them washing their hands a lot. You wash your hands a lot. Um, Help out your loved ones who are older or are infirm. Maybe offer to go and get them groceries and bring them back and wash your hands right when you come in the house. All right, my friends, I'll keep doing more of these videos if they're helpful for you. Thanks for joining me. Again, this is Dr. Dena Grayson. I'm wishing everyone a safe and wonderful end to your weekend. Thanks, everyone.